everyone, to the Game Vault Podcast. I'm your host, Tom Schuster. Joining me tonight are Mark Myers and special guest Jonathan McHugh. Tonight we'll be discussing the PlayStation Showcase and our favorite, quote-unquote, dead games. But before we get to all of that, what have you guys been playing? Special guest, you get to go first.
All right, so the first thing is I was told that I need to do an impression of Jenny's voice in order to take her spot today. So here goes. What's up, gamers? Are you hyped to see some epic Fortnight moments? Let's get some Fs in the chat for Roxy Foxy, who can't be here because she overdosed on G Fuel. So lame. However, I think this show is still going to be pretty poggers, guys. That's my impression of our favorite pro streamer.
That's great. So good.
Give it a 9 out of 10. The 10 out of 10 would have been if you mentioned Phasmophobia.
Yeah.
There you go, Jen. I mentioned it. That's the only time it'll come up on the show.
All right. Okay. Down to the good stuff.
The stuff I'm playing, though. Right? Okay. So the first thing I wanted to say is my thesis for your podcast is that good games don't stop being good. That just because a game is old doesn't mean that it's now a bad game. And also that the converse of this, I'm finding with a lot of the games that you guys have been playing, if it's something that I don't like, I also wouldn't have liked it at the time. So
that's a good thesis. I like that.
Yeah, we'll get into that a bit more when we get to the roulette game.
Yeah.
But
okay.
So I got a Vita recently, and which is a fantastic device, super great. I'm absolutely loving it. I wish that I had one of these things before, but I didn't know they existed until recently.
It happens.
No. Yeah.
I mean, you missed all that marketing by Sony promoting this thing.
Yeah. So I got that thing. I've been wanting for one for a long time. Super great. The first thing I played on there is Salt and Sanctuary, which is an indie game that's also on PC and stuff. It's 2D Dark Souls. It's the first one of those. It's really good. I don't have much to say about it, just that I have that is the thing that I played on my Vita. The game the two games I want to talk about more are, first of all, Metroid Zero Mission. I've been playing that on my 3DS because everybody's hyped for Metroid Dread to come out. Yeah. It's good. I actually haven't been able to get into Metroidvanias before, even though I really like all of the Souls-like games, because I just don't like 2D platformers. Like, I've never really been into them. And so all of the games that are considered Metroidvanias are 2D platformers. And so it's just been rough to get into there. But Metroid Zero Mission, super great game. Really loving it, I think. And it's really getting me into this genre.
There's always one into it, and then you start trying them all.
Was Zero Mission a remake?
Yes, of one.
Okay. I thought it was. I could not remember. But yeah, I've heard good things about Zero.
Yeah. I'm not done with it yet, and so when I finish it, we'll see if I move on to Fusion, which was also on the GBA. But the thing with Fusion is that the gameplay is really good, but the story is, what if you had a really shitty 12-year-old boy write a science fiction story that they thought was really revolutionary, but then you told them, no, sorry, you have to make the main character a woman. And so they just replaced all of their male OC's dialogue with the female character having monologues about how cool that OC is. I'm not exaggerating.
I believe you.
Yeah, and so we'll see if I play Fusion. After this, Metroid's just so bad when they add story to it. And similarly, I don't know if I'm gonna want to check out Dread. I'm almost certainly not gonna want to pay Nintendo prices for it, but we'll see.
So you'll play it once it comes to once it ends up in Uncle Vim's vault
layer.
Yeah. The other game I wanted to talk about is also on the Vita. I think I told you guys I'd started getting into first-person dungeon crawlers recently.
Oh, yeah.
So I guess for the recapping that a little bit, I started playing a bunch of first-person dungeon crawlers because I realized that, so first-person dungeon crawlers, like Wizardry and whatever, started in the 80s, and that's where JRPGs came from. JRPGs are like building on that genre, which is now basically dead.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I realized that all of the things I don't like about JRPGs are the difference between JRPGs and first-person dungeon crawlers. So
That's interesting dichotomy there.
Yeah, basically JRPGs just added story and lots of dialogue and cutscenes and removed some of the grind. And the thing I like is all of the grind and like resource management stuff, which is all dungeon crawlers are. It's just that. It's nothing but exploring these dungeons, managing your resources and stuff like that. There's not a lot of story. And you generally make your own characters, so they don't have like pre-written dialogue really.
Right. So it's more like a what were the first like the earlier versions of Skyrim? What was the the Elder Scrolls series? The
Elder Scrolls like
the older right.
Arena and Daggerfall and stuff.
Right, exactly.
Which were proc gen.
Yeah. I think if I'm thinking of the right genre you're talking about, Jonathan, I think my first actual foray into dungeon stuff and RPGs was I had a Sega Genesis game called Shining in the Darkness, which was like first person going through like a dungeon like thing, sort of Wolfenstein style, where you take a few steps and then there's a wall and you make a left and you take a few steps and then things pop up. Yeah, so that was probably my first RPG because for as much as I remember about my dad's gaming, he had randomly picked that game up at a Toys R Us, and so it was one of the 6 games that were in my house to play. Didn't get far as a child. I got a little further as I got older, but those games have a certain quality to them that you need to like that type of game to stick with it, I think. And I think that's why 8-year-old me didn't really stick with it.
Yeah.
Now, Jonathan, have you ever played the original Phantasy Star? I feel like that would be
You've
right up
mentioned
your
this.
alley.
It's on my list.
Okay.
But so the dungeon crawler that I just started today is Mary Skelter : Nightmares, which was on the Vita. And this game is bad vibes distilled to their purest essence. Just everything about it is the most rancid vibes. Okay, so I'm going to explain a mechanic to you that you don't need to know anything else about this game. I will once I explain this mechanic, you will understand what I mean by just absolute worst vibes. I love it so much. Okay, so when your characters hit an enemy with the element that they're weak to, or when they get critical hits, or when you overkill an enemy, it fills up your character's blood splatter gauge. When your character blood splatter gauge gets filled, they enter massacre mode, where their stats get increased and they have access to like special skills that do extra damage and stuff. Alternately, before your character enters massacre mode, a different character can lick the blood off of them to activate their blood soul skill, which will generally be like heal your characters or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Barely, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah.
With mechanics like that, I always think that it was something that looked good on paper, and then when you try and execute it in the game or try to explain it in actual gameplay, it just falls apart.
So those mechanics work in the game, and like from a gameplay RPG mechanics perspective, I think that's a neat idea because, like I said, the cool thing about dungeon crawlers is just that you're constantly managing your resources, like your HP, your MP, your items, all that stuff. And this is just another resource that you're managing, and you get that resource by being aggressive. And so that's pretty cool.
I was thinking more the idea of licking the blood off them.
No,
as one of the things.
Look up this game and see the character portraits, and you will see, oh no, that's 100% intentional. That's exactly what they were going for.
Is this a very Japanese game?
Yes, obviously.
Yeah, I was going to say it's got.
Well, I say obviously because one, it's like an anime art style, and also because it has mechanics like this, but also because all of the recent dungeon crawlers are made in Japan, because that's the one place where they have been popular since the 1980s.
Yeah, it makes sense. Wow. All right.
That's all I got.
I would love to see what that game looks like. You'll have to show us at the next D&D session.
Yeah. One more thing. I want to hear Mark talk about this. But I did play start Neo last night since it's free on the Epic Game Store. And that and Neo 2 are absolutely some of the best action games of all time. They're just so good. Absolutely. Except for the Diablo loot. Well, I'll let you talk now.
Yeah, so not to disappoint you a little bit, but I was saving Neo and Life is Strange for the next episode. Didn't have much time to play them over the last couple of days, but those are definitely on my list to play. Along with, I went to play the Forgotten City today, and then it had this massive update to patch it. So that didn't work out. So essentially, over the last 2 weeks, I've been playing essentially like 3 games. That's not like It Takes Two or anything like that. Got a little bit further in Death's Door. Still love that game. Probably definitely going to be on my top 5. I do really enjoy the way that game plays and looks. Not much to update. I didn't get much further in it, but the 2 main things I really want to talk about, and I've been playing it so much that I don't know if I talked about it on the last podcast or if I've just been talking about it on streams because of how much I'm digging it so far. I'm playing through Wildermyth, which is sort of like a visual novel / storybook, Dungeons and Dragons type thing. Where it's from what I can tell or what I've read about it, it's essentially procedural generated like dialogue and stories. As you go through and you can choose not to do something, and that leads you down a whole nother path with whole different dialogue, the relationships, or your characters' personalities are what sort of drives that. So you get some great things in terms of like I had 2 characters. Which I think kind of breaks the game a little bit. I had 2 female characters in the game end up, I put them on the romantic path, and then at the end of one chapter, they ended up getting married and having a kid. Like, they didn't say adopted, they said had the kid. So I don't know if it was just the way the game played. It was like they didn't really account for, explaining with, in same-sex relationships and stuff like that.
Magic.
Yeah, okay, so we'll say magic. But it's still cool, in that they, like, I didn't even, think that could happen in the game, and they just went off and married these 2 characters, because I put... the other thing is that the aforementioned one of the brides has turned into a wolf. So she has a giant wolf head and a wolf's claw right now, because she's cursed by a spirit of an old demon wolf. So the best part about that, and I sent a screenshot, I think either to Jen exclusively or in the Game Vault chat, is there's just this one thing where they're searching around the forest, and her partner, it goes, "Hey, where's this thing at?" And in the background of the still image is just this giant wolf's head with like a mouth open smiling. With her dialogue written, and I lost it at that point. I'm like, this is ridiculous. That it's so, just small touches in it. And I had a few deaths in the last thing, which is what I was doing right before we recorded. One of my characters from the beginning finally died. And then the rest in peace, the aforementioned daughter died in combat. So it's a little brutal in that way. You get 2 chances. If you die once in battle, you can sort of run away, and then they come back with some sort of like, they get maimed, so they come back with something wrong. Like the daughter, before she died, she lost her arm, so she came back with like a hook, and that gave her an extra attack to sort of gouge people, which is a pretty cool mechanic. And the other one came back with like I think it was like some kind of like a wooden leg or something, so her speed was cut in half. And which is probably why she ended up dying. But
it's an interesting mechanic that they put them through that at least.
And you have different ways stories go, and you can decide, so there's plenty of branching paths, and like all of a sudden, the last thing that happened right at the end of the battle, we did 2 of the characters in my party now hate each other, apparently. It popped up on the screen. So-and-so and so-and-so are rivals. I'm like, oh, now I gotta deal with that next time. So I'm interested to see where that's going, but yeah, it's very, by the numbers, there's a like incursion coming in of creatures. You sort of have to build up the fences. And then because if your character's on the other side of the map, you need to sort of hold them off while you're going across to come fight them. You can split up your party and sort of have certain people do certain things. due to my deafs, I have not been able to do that. So I haven't experienced that mechanic yet, but it's pretty good. I think it's like $25 or something like that, maybe 30 at the most.
It's not on Game Pass?
Recommend it. It's not on Game Pass, it's only on Steam.
Okay.
So yeah, I would recommend picking it up for anybody that likes that sort of stuff. You know, it has equipment and crafting, and you'll probably run into like the choice for that wolf head thing, because everybody I've talked to has had that and it's gone one way or the other with it. So it's just basically seems like in the first campaign, you basically get the same choices. It seems to be split up into campaigns. Like you finish a campaign and then you'll come back with whole new characters, but you'll meet one or two people from your old campaign. I read that in a review, so I'm interested to get there. But the biggest thing that I've gotten into this week, thanks to one Thomas Schuster, was introducing me to RPCS3, the PS3 emulator, on your computer, because there's two games that are basically locked to that generation that I every so often use as my palate cleanser to play. As you know, listening to this podcast, I usually play sports games to sort of just in between playing all the other games to sort of just have something mind-numbing while having a video or a podcast on. So for this case, getting this emulator, I have been able to get back into college sports with the actual games that are probably the best ones you can get, because the PS2 versions, unless you go all the way back and play with the insane stuff that's like 03, 04 NCAA football, I think 13 and 14 are the best, and they were at their zenith at on PS3 in terms of graphics and the music and stuff sounding a lot clearer. So I've been playing way too much of that, and Tom for introducing that.
Problem.
So there's probably gonna be a whole lot of video games I'll be talking about coming up soon. I got, I'm gonna be jumping into Neo for a little bit. Life is Strange is probably gonna be my big one next week. Get back into Boyfriend Dungeon. We'll see how many of these I can finish before the end of the year. I want to do the Forgotten City. That seems like a short game, but yeah, I am just excited, and I think I played like a week and a half of Madden. I may be done until like I just get the itch to play NFL football, because the college football is satisfying my need to, play some type of football game. It's that time of year for me where I'm gonna try and play a lot of the AAA stuff, and then find these little gems that come out on the indie market. And thankfully this year I have someone like Jonathan to point me in the direction of some maybe more obscure games that I wouldn't have thought about. So I always like that. That's how my game of the year ended up being Oxenfree one. So yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing what comes of. We'll talk about in the news a lot of the things that came out for 2022, how that year's going to be.
Yeah, next year's going to be stacked for sure.
Yeah.
I will quickly get into my games. It hasn't been all that much. I played some more MLB The Show just because, like Mark said, it's palate cleanser. It just gets me onto the next thing, because it's just one of the things you can jump in. It's mindless. You don't have to worry about story or anything like that. I've continuing my Chain of Memories playthrough. I'm sure Jonathan will be happy to hear that. It's taking me way too long, honestly, to get through this game. Just because I have finally figured out a cheese. I think I mentioned this on the last podcast, but I figured out like the cheese move to get through bosses and stuff. So fingers crossed I will get through that quicker. Surprisingly, though, I'm probably halfway to 2/3 of the way through the game. Not a lot has happened. Now, Jonathan, did you see that too? Like they introduced a couple of characters that show up like in later games, but nothing really happens.
So I haven't talked to you. I don't think I've actually talked to you about Chain of Memories, because 4 months ago or something like that,
yes,
you said you were playing it, and I was like, okay, I'll play it. And I played it, and I was like, man, I have a lot of thoughts about this game. I can't wait for Tom to beat it. And then you keep messing with your microphone or something like that instead of playing it. So Okay, I have two things that I can say that aren't really spoilers. But I would still like to talk to you about it more after you think.
Well,
So the first
I promise I will beat it at some point.
All right. So the first thing is, I think Chain of Memories might be one of the best Kingdom Hearts stories.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's very like self-contained and stuff, and it's clear like what the themes are and stuff, and they do some interesting things. I won't get into it anymore because I don't know where you're at, and I don't want to give you spoilers and stuff. The other thing is, well, how far are you?
I want to say I'm on like level 8.
Okay, so you're pretty far in it then.
Yeah.
So when I was younger, and this game was like a year, this was like a year or two after Kingdom Hearts 2 came out, I hadn't played Chain of Memories. I had a friend who had it, and I was like, oh, hey, what's that about? I never got a chance to play that. Should I? And he said, I mean, you can if you want to. It just retells the story of the first game. And now having played that, I don't know if he didn't play the game or didn't understand it, or if that's the funniest joke that he was playing on me, expecting I would play the game and then realize that he had pranked me.
I'm gonna go with one of the first choices.
We'll talk about that later when you beat it, but
okay.
I think you are already far enough in to get what I mean.
Yeah, I totally understand what you mean, but yeah, it's not retelling the first game at all. It's totally different. But anyway, yeah. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I'll have that game beaten by the end of September or October. Hopefully, I need to give myself like a hard date to finish it, or else I'll never. Because it took me. Like games like this take me forever for whatever reason. I don't know why. I don't know if it's just because I don't want them to end or what the deal is. But like Final Fantasy 5 years to beat. I got to the end point, like the point where you can go do all the stuff when the game opens up.
And that sucks.
But yeah, but I was like, I don't want it to be over yet. So I want to try to do some of this side stuff. And then you get sidetracked and then you never get back to it. And then I'm just like, all right, I just need to beat this game. I just need to get to the end. And like, I beat it 5 years after starting it. And it's just like, I have a lot of games like that. Like I think Legend of Dragoon is the longest. The Legend of Dragoon took me 20 years to beat, I think, because I continued a save from my childhood and beat it. So that was probably the longest one. But it for whatever reason, these types of games like Breath of the Wild, I still haven't beat. I'm at the point where I can go beat the game. I just have not done it. It happens to me in all kinds of RPGs, but I'm trying to make it not happen.
It sounds like you have a fear of commitment.
I think it's a fear of losing something more than commitment. Because you don't get like once you finish it, that's it. It's over. Because generally,
it's also not. RPGs never end at the end.
Generally, when I finish a game, I never like go back and do the side stuff. Like when I see credits, that's it. I rarely will go back and do side stuff. Like games that are really important to me, like Final Fantasy VII or things like that. That's different. Or like Kingdom Hearts 1 or 2. But generally, when I roll credits on a game, I'm like, all right, I'm on to the next one because of stuff like that. Because it takes me forever to beat a game. But yeah, it's going to be an ongoing saga. Hopefully, I'll be done with it soon, and you guys can come along on the journey with. All right, last but certainly not least, one of the benefits of Bethesda being owned by Microsoft is that all of the old Bethesda games and games that Bethesda owns are now on Game Pass. And Quake just got remastered. And I was playing through some Quake, and man, it was like being thrown back to 1998 or whatever it was when Quake came out. And I'm playing it on an ultra-wide monitor, and I have the Nine Inch Nails soundtrack, and it was so good because you can still buy Quake like the old, like the on GOG and stuff, but to get the music to work and everything, it just was a nightmare. This, you just load it up. Granted, you have to log into BethesdaNet and all that other crap, but after that, I didn't care because it was awesome. It was like playing it on a fast Pentium back in the day with a Voodoo card, and it was everything I hoped it would be. because it wasn't like overdone where it looked too different, but it looked really good for what it's supposed to be. If that makes sense. They didn't take away the character of it.
Would you say that it's a good game that hasn't stopped being good?
I would say that. It's one of those games that is still good to this day, even though it's 30 years old or whatever it is now. But yeah, if you have Game Pass and you have either one, if you have never played Quake, you should go play it. And two, if you played Quake and really liked it as a kid, go back and play this because it plays how you remember it playing, or better, if that makes sense. It doesn't look all grainy and blocky, and it's not in 640 by 480 or 320 by 200 like it was on DOS. So, and you don't have to type in DOS scripts. It's nice. You just click on the icon and it works. And you get the music from Trent Reznor, and I loved it.
Does it have ray tracing?
It does not.
Wait, it's not worth purchasing.
I'm sorry, Mark.
So I'm looking at the trailer, and I really love how the chain gun shoots little triangles.
Oh yeah,
it's great.
My favorite gun in Quake is the 9-inch nail gun. It's like an automatic gun that shoots nails, but when you pick them up, they have the 9-inch nails logo on them.
I think that might be what I'm talking about.
Well, yeah, that's probably what, if it's like shooting them real fast.
Yeah,
it's shooting nails and not bullets.
All right,
so good.
That thing looks great.
It's my favorite weapon in that game. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, it's not like a first person shooter for today. It's a totally different style of game, but you can see where a lot of tropes that happen now came from playing Quake. And it's hard. It's like watching an old movie. Like you watch a movie and you say, "Oh, they did that in that movie." They do that all the time. Well, at the time the movie came out or the game came out, it was the first one to do it or close to being the first one to do it. So it's hard to get in that mindset unless you played games, I guess, from that era. But Quake Remaster, highly recommend it. It's on Game Pass. It's on PC Game Pass. So especially if you're a PC gamer and you've played Quake a million times over the years, this is probably the best way to play. I would highly recommend. All right. I think that covers my gaming for these couple weeks. Hopefully, well, the stuff that we're going to talk about next is unfortunately going to have to wait a couple of years, at least a year, if not two. But Sony had a PlayStation showcase this past week, and man, did I think that it was going to be a stinker through the first half. Yeah. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah,
wait, you're not excited for Chess 2?
Oh, that opening. I said this is either going to be some really dumb take on chess, or it's an ad for some other game.
It wasn't even an ad for a game.
I know. Yep. It turned out to be neither.
It was
and I don't know if that was disappointing or not to me.
It was to me. I mean, because they showed game stuff in the what I don't know what you would call it. It's not a trailer, advert.
It's an ad. Yeah.
Like when they were driving around in the car, the Final Fantasy VII logo was spray painted on a building.
Yeah, well, you've seen those ads before for PlayStation, right? Where they
but they didn't even have there was no game. There's no PlayStation game.
No, there's a statue of Aloy, and I think that.
But there was no.
No, I know it's their play together thing. Like, remember when that stupid one where the guy walked into the bar and it was like all the tavern and it was all these people.
Yeah, but the one with all the PlayStation characters in it was cool. I thought that was interesting. This was just dumb.
I mean,
I don't know.
Well, I'll be honest, they probably won't do it, but I'd play that chess game.
So now that I think about it, if that were a real game, what they were showing in that video made it look like it would be a driving game, and like an open world driving game with a cinematic campaign with really good graphics, which does sound like a game that Tom would really enjoy.
Yes.
Yeah. As it was playing, I'm going, if this is real, or if this is a game, this would be really interesting. And then they finish it, and it's like, oh, we're just playing chess. Yeah. That's all it is. It's video chess or whatever, or wizard chess or whatever you want to call it.
It was I would have loved it as a modern version of battle chess.
Yeah, that's what battle chess exactly.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. It was.
Can I ask both of you a question?
Sure.
What piece was the girl at the end that won and got the crown?
She was a pawn.
Was she a pawn? Okay. I'm going, how? Okay. Like, I guess I'm assuming that the checkmate came from another piece as well.
Yeah, the thing that flew out, it was a helicopter flying out.
So that, what was that?
It was probably a bishop or something.
Yeah, but okay.
I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it was a cool concept, but why did you wasted almost 8 minutes of this showtime with that.
Yeah,
because the PS5 has no games. Oh,
yeah.
You are not wrong.
Jonathan beat me to it.
You're not wrong. And then they go into all of the the more indie developed games. And I gotta say, for like the first 20 minutes of this showcase, I was like, man, they really got nothing, huh? They got absolutely nothing.
Well, the first thing they showed was KOTOR.
Well, right, but they didn't show anything. They
don't need to. They said KOTOR Remake, and I was like, all right, when do I pre-order?
Exactly. Right. Yeah. KOTOR Remake, you pretty much go, all right, I'm in. They don't really need to show you anything of that, but everything after that, I was like, I'm not. And everything looked very samey. Everything looked very much the same. Like,
I will not hear that slander about Bayonetta Stranding. All right.
Yeah.
That if that game is not coming to anything else, and it is the game that I think it is, I might buy a PS5 for it.
Project Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what to think about that game. I've heard rumblings about it previously, but I don't know. It just didn't. That's what I think. I was rip off at best.
Do we want to talk about this game right now?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So 2 things about this game. From what they showed, well, one, I like that they actually showed a lot of gameplay. That's how you know it has nothing to do with PlayStation Studios.
Yeah, exactly.
From what they showed, it looks like this is either a third-person action game that's going to have a lot of QTEs, or it is going to be like a character action game, like Bayonetta or Devil May Cry or something like that, with really intense combat. If it's the second one, that's when I mean that I might buy a PS5 for it, if it's not coming to anything else.
I hate to disappoint you, but I think it's going to be the first one. I think it's going to be a lot of QTEs.
But the second thing I was going to say about it is the things I have heard people, the articles I've seen about this game are so dumb. One of the articles said, this game looks like a combination of Bayonetta and Nier Automata. So, do you two know why that's a really stupid thing to say?
I mean, aren't they made by the same people?
Yes. Okay. They're made by the same people, and the combat in Nier Automata is based on Bayonetta.
Yeah.
That's like saying this game is like a combination of Warzone and Call of Duty Modern Warfare.
They use guns.
It sounds kind of dumb, yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing I heard was people thinking it was Parasite Eve Remake.
Oh, that... Man. I would be curious to see what a Parasite Eve Remake looks like.
Yes.
Because I don't know how you would do that without making it boring, because you don't have the limitations of PS1.
It's kind of like remaking Resident Evil. It's kind of the same type of deal.
So the thing with Parasite Eve is that it has a super weird combat system.
Oh, yeah.
That is based on it being a top-down shooter RPG. And so I feel like if they were to remake it today, they would make it a third-person shooter, which suddenly is no longer weird. And so I just don't know what that would...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Remaking games like that is tough when they had those limitations in place. I mean, you kind of just have to take that and make it look better. Unless you go the route of Resident Evil, where you completely remake it to the point where it's like a totally different game.
A lot of people's thought on that was because there's such a nostalgia level for that game that I played it and enjoyed it. And without knowing much about it going in, but I don't get this whole thing where, oh man, I want to see it remade. Like, it's not the same feeling when someone mentions that as I got when they brought up like Final Fantasy VII and stuff like that. I'm like, oh yeah, that'd be interesting. But Parasite, I'm like, no, it just, I don't know.
It's kind of like one of those games that should be left in the past.
Exactly.
But I don't want to get hate from that, but it's hard to take a game like that and remake it for a modern audience.
I'm really torn about it.
You would have to, if everybody just likes the story, then you like we said, you'd have to figure out a whole new type of game with just the story around it, because the way it plays on PlayStation, as Jonathan mentioned, I don't think really works nowadays. It's why we get into the argument over, you see the argument over action versus turn-based in RPGs. It's not the same as it was when the limitations required everything to be turn-based. If you like the story, which I have not played that game since it came out, nor watched any videos on it or remember anything really outside of the opening. But you would have to. I think it would be one of those things where you just show. You could get a lot of hype and a lot of sales over just showing Eve, no matter how good the game is.
They remade the intro to Final Fantasy VII for the PS3, and people were lost their mind.
Yeah.
I mean, so it doesn't take much. But anyway, let's get off. We got a lot to talk about. Do we want to talk about Control meets Skyrim with Forspoken?
Yeah, I've been really curious about this game since it was Project Athia. I really hope, and maybe I just need to watch the trailers again or something. My real hope is that they do what I thought was going to happen originally, was take somebody from our world, essentially, I'm doing that in quotes, and putting them into a medieval Final Fantasy world and just having them freak out and do, not accept it quickly. So I'm hoping that's what the first part of this game is. And not her immediately going, "Oh, cool powers, woo!"
I mean, that's kind of what it looked like in the trailer. The trailer made it seem like they got transported, said, "What the F?" and then decided, "Oh, this is cool. I have powers," and then that was it. And I hope it was just jumping
ahead. That's why I'm interested. I want to wait for reviews and stuff before committing to it. Not so much that I go by what a score is or something, but just a general vibe just to get a general vibe of the game from a review.
Like we've said, we generally go to a specific person that we would know would.
Well, not even that. I would just scour a bunch of them and just see if it's the type of game that I'm thinking it is. But yeah, it looks. A quick joke before I get your guys' opinion on it. Because I watched the press conference with nothing, and then I watched the people talking over it afterwards. With multiple people doing that. And when this popped up and it showed the woman in on the bus or train or whatever in New York, and it showed the logo for Luminous Studios and all that. Someone was like, "Oh, is this the quiet woman?" And I just lost it.
It looked like the Quiet Man, like the art style was very Quiet Man-esque.
That just the idea that Square would be that cocky to go, "Well, you like that game? Here's the female version."
I don't know. The whole going. Yeah. I mean, the going back in time thing is cool and all, but
I just want even if it's a couple hours, I just want that thing of I want the story to have that realistic feeling of girl not really figuring it out, and not all of a sudden as soon as she gets the power she's good. Maybe she. I don't know. I need to see what the story is. The trailer, while it looks cool, is not convincing me to play this game. I don't know about you two.
Yeah, me either. I mean, this was one of those ones I was like, oh, it's like Skyrim with a person from our time. I don't know. It just didn't seem interesting to me. The premise didn't seem all that interesting. I don't know, Jonathan. I don't know about you.
Yeah, so I am in more anime circles than you two, and the biggest thing in anime over the past few years has been isekai, which is this genre, which is a normal person gets transported to a magical world. And the most of those in anime are somebody getting transported to a video game world and they get magic powers or something like that. And so when they showed this person being like, "Whoa, I have magic powers," I was like, "Oh God, no, not another one of these." I have zero interest in this. I don't care. And then also the gameplay they did show looks like a kind of game that I would not.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't know. It just did not seem interesting, but it's early yet. Yeah, they could show something different. I don't know.
Yeah, it's more wait and see on my end. I played a lot of trash in my life, so I wouldn't be surprised if this turns into
another game Another game that kind of disappointed me was I might get some hate for Ghostwire Tokyo. Did not look interesting.
I can probably pinpoint why. It was one of the games that looked very much like a PS4 game.
It didn't look very good at all. It did not look good
compared to the other games they showed.
I don't understand. So I saw that and I was like, yeah, I'd play another BioShock. But I didn't think that the graphics looked bad. So.
I mean, I guess in the first part of the trailer where like the dude has the geostigma on his face or whatever the hell we're gonna call it. I don't know. It just didn't look great. And the whole time I was watching, I was thinking, oh, this is just BioShock. That was exactly what I was thinking. But I don't know.
I wouldn't say it's just BioShock. It looked like the good parts of BioShock combat, which is not a thing that a lot of games do.
I'm probably going to still play it. I was just trying to figure out the reason why Tom was a little off on it. But
maybe it's the villain. I don't know. It's something about it was just like, eh.
Yeah. So,
it seemed more interesting before they showed as much as they did to me. That's just me. I don't know.
I mean, this is probably one of the games I'm going to play when it comes out. Just because I've played, the other games, the Evil Within, right? That's what they were called. The other games they made. Yeah. Playing too much XCOM, Evil Within, Evil, all that stuff. I always get, confused in my head which is what. But yeah, I have the first one. I bought a physical copy, and I played a little bit of the second one. So I'm probably still gonna check it out because I like the vibe of the studio, and that usually leads me to buying a lot of games. You show me a couple games I like in the past, I'll give you a chance on this one. But yeah, it hasn't changed in terms of what I'm expecting out of it since we first saw it. It just gave me a little bit more clear of a picture for this one. So still on my list, nothing changed with this. It didn't turn me off or get me more excited.
Yeah, I don't want it to turn into an overhyped thing because people have been talking about this game forever. I feel like after what was her name? Everybody fell in love with her after she did that intro for Ghostwire Tokyo during one of the gaming events. But like after that, I was interested in it, and then I don't know. I feel like everybody's kind of blown the whole game out of proportion waiting for it. But we'll see. Again, this game doesn't come out for another year, right? Was this another 2022 release?
I don't think anything was to come out this year.
There was I want to say there was a couple that but many.
But
yeah. I guess real quick, we'll go through Alan Wake Remastered. Either of you interested in Alan Wake Remastered? Mark, I'm sure you probably are because you're super into that developer.
Yeah, so I'm definitely going to play it. The one thing I'm hoping for is that the DLCs are separate, and you don't have to play through Alan Wake to be able to play the DLCs because I've already played through Alan Wake. That's the only thing. I never got the DLCs, which I heard you have to play both of them to get the full story of the game. So that's probably the reason why I'll purchase it. I might wait for a sale or something, but
you never know. This could end up coming out on Game Pass too. It might be. I think it's a timed exclusive.
So if it's Game Pass, do that and play the DLCs. Because I still the one game I keep holding is just Quantum Break is such a large game to download because of the real video in it. And the way that's structured, but playing through all those games because I like the idea, and maybe it's just me, and maybe I'm strange with this, but I just like the idea of games being from a connected world.
No, I'm with you. I'm totally with you there. I love that.
So it would make me even buy terrible games. And not saying like I'm not including sequels in that. Like a direct sequel to a game. I'm talking about these are like 3 distinct games. Meaning Quantum Break, Control, and Alan Wake, that are all there's references to all of them. Throughout. Maybe less Quantum Break in Alan Wake, because a lot of the stuff the Control references are like retcon sort of things. Like Control mentioned them, so that when you see them in Alan Wake, that's where the connection is. But it happened backwards. But. Yeah. I'm probably gonna, if it's free on Game Pass or it goes on sale, I'm gonna pick it up just to play those DLCs to have exhausted all of them. I still got to get through Control Ultimate Edition just so I can play it with a map that functioned properly, unlike the one on Xbox One. So yeah, this game I'm glad they did this, because when they pulled it off the shelves, I thought it was just gone forever, but I guess they were either ramping this up to do this, or they just had to relicense songs.
Probably a little of both. Jonathan, any interest in Alan Wake?
Absolutely not. Have you played that game? It is awful. It's a miserable experience to play the game.
This is true.
If you have any interest in it, you should just watch a Let's Play, like a no commentary Well, it doesn't matter if it has commentary or not.
I was going to say, it's kind of a boring game to play, right? Because you don't really do anything.
It's not boring. It's really miserable. It is. Alan controls like shit. The guns are like not very accurate, but you have to do a lot of headshots, and the flashlight mechanic seems kind of cool at first, but gets really old really fast, and mostly just makes everything like a bullet sponge effectively. It's like, what if Resident Evil was awful and had no tension, but was also much harder?
Yeah. Okay. Everything he says is true about the game, but it was the story that really made me push through. I got hooked into the story. Just like Control's a much better game, but that was the reason I stuck with that through the tough moments of that game. Is just the story hooked me, and I was in and wanted to see how it ended. And apparently, I didn't actually see how it ended, because I have to play the 2 DLCs and suffer through those. But I'm a masochist, as everybody knows that listens to this podcast.
A game that did kind of change my mind was Deathloop, because when I first saw the trailer for Deathloop, I thought, this is so stupid. It's a one-on-one shooter that makes no sense. Why would you want to do that over and over and over? But now that they have kind of fleshed out the story a little bit, it makes it way more interesting, and I think this may be one of the games I actually play this year.
Welcome to the club.
You weren't hooked when they said it was a new game by Arcane?
I mean, that's when I got hooked.
No. No. I was not hooked then.
I feel like everybody I've heard talk about that game has said, yeah, I mean, I really like Dishonored, so obviously I'm going to play this day one.
Yeah, I mean, if you like Dishonored and you like Arcane Studios, I can imagine you playing this day one. But when I saw the first, it must have been before the PS5 even came out, when they were talking, or was at the PS5 announcement, they were talking about Deathloop, and it didn't make at the time, the premise didn't make any sense. It was because they made it look like it was just one person against another person trying to kill each other over and over and over again, and that didn't make any sense, and it didn't sound any fun to me. But the whole thing where you're there, where they're saying that you're there as security, and you're trying to make sure that this other person doesn't kill the people that you need to kill, that makes more sense. And it makes it a lot more interesting. And obviously, as you go, I'm sure you'll figure out why you're there and who you really are and all that other stuff. So it looks a lot more interesting now to me. So I may pick that one up. It may be a birthday present for myself.
Yeah, I'm looking forward. That was one of the games I was mentioning that is going to throw a monkey wrench into all the other games I want to play coming up.
Sure.
So, yeah.
All right. Real quick, I don't know how to pronounce this, and I don't want to sound like an idiot. It's the game titled Tchia. Chia? I think it's Chia.
Right. What?
I have no idea what was going on in it. I mean, it looked like you can turn yourself into an animal.
Oh, yeah.
To like accomplish certain things throughout the game, but I didn't really understand what was. It could have just been me not listening to the words well enough or comprehending what was happening. But I don't know if you guys had any insights on what you think about this game.
It's an open world exploration game. There's been a lot of indie games like this recently, so every AAA video game recently is a third-person open-world action RPG, and people are always like, wow, look at how beautiful this game is, and they show a screenshot that is exactly the Breath of the Wild cover art. And so there's been a lot of indie games recently that are like, what if we did that, but just took out the combat, since absolutely nobody ever cares about that part of these games.
Yeah.
And this looks like...
Yeah, I mean, it looked very pretty, but I just didn't have any interest in wanting to play it.
Yeah, my thoughts are perfectly summed up by John there. So,
okay.
I'm sure people will love it, but if I wanted to play a game like that, I would not be playing a game where your characters go into either go into massacre mode or lick the blood splatter off each other.
Yeah.
All right, I want to talk about my favorite game of this whole thing, Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. I don't know why, like, you would think that, like, watching this other stuff and I not being interested, and then all of a sudden I saw that it's a Borderlands game, all of a sudden I'm interested, because it's a Borderlands / D&D game. How would we all not be interested?
I mean,
I'm more hardcore.
Yeah, I was interested in it just from the sheer fact of I will play just about any game Ashley Bird, so.
Right, she's Tiny Tina, correct? Jonathan, being a D&D fan and playing so much D&D,
I don't want D&D unless it's a D&D. That's why I'm hardcore in these first-person dungeon crawlers.
There you go.
I thought it looked really cool. D&D with guns. It just sounded like an interesting concept to me. Which this was actually Skyrim with guns. Like they say Fallout is Skyrim with guns. This was actually Skyrim with guns.
Someone that calls Fallout Skyrim with guns has never played Fallout.
I don't know.
I'm not getting into that. But no, the real reason that I'm not interested is just because I don't like the combat in Borderlands.
I mean, the magic stuff may make it more interesting, but I've always liked the combat in Borderlands, but I feel like the problem I run into in Borderlands, and I'll probably run into it with this as well, I feel like it's one of those games you have to play with somebody. Kind of like The Division or Destiny. Well, Destiny is one of those games I could play by myself, but I feel like Borderlands is one of those games you have to be partied up with someone in order to make it somewhat interesting. But that's just me. But I thought this looked really cool. There's dragons in it. Jen's going to be all over it.
Dragons.
And I'm pretty sure it comes out on PC, so guess what? We'll have another game to play for Wednesday nights. If we decide to go the co-op route as opposed to playing online shooters. So we'll see. I thought that looked really cool. I guess we'll get into the heavy hitters.
Oh yeah.
Let's see. What did they start with?
Wolverine was first.
Wolverine? Okay. And just what I saw, the 5 seconds of stuff they showed, I was like, "Yep, I'm in. I don't care. I'm gonna play a Wolverine game." I'm
100% in for more reasons than that. It's that for some reason, and I saw someone. I wish I could point to the article where they articulate this a lot better than I'm going to do. Everything that Insomniac is doing with their Marvel stuff and being very focused and very like onto one character, one story, stuff like that, is everything that the Avengers is doing wrong. With their rollout, because the idea of, I'm pretty sure this Wolverine's going to be like his origin story. Just from the little hints from things I read, the cast register said 1974. It seemed to be, a little bit older attire on the people. But if I trust anyone to pull this off, it would be those people. Yeah. Because they made, that Spider-Man game was my game of the year when it came out. And
I would everything Insomniac has done, and I should really pick up Ratchet and Clank as well because they did that, and I really liked Spider-Man. I really liked Sunset Overdrive. Yeah. So I can only. I
think it's my personal thing, but I believe this is a lot of other people, and probably you too as well. When a studio does a good job, multiple games in a row, I will keep trusting them to be able to do that until they prove otherwise. So I will not, nitpick anything or worry about Wolverine. I just want to play it. I don't need to see anything about it. Just give me the Insomniac story of Wolverine, and I will go play it. And this goes double for the next thing we'll talk about too.
Yeah, Jonathan, any thoughts on Wolverine? Did either of you guys play the original Wolverine game?
What's the original Wolverine game?
There's X-Men Origins Wolverine, the best X-Men game.
I have not, or I
X-Men Origins Wolverine is the video game based on the terrible movie.
Yes, I know the movie.
But the game is really good.
It's a hack and slash, probably.
It's a hack and slash, but it's super gory, and I'm pretty sure it's rated M. But it's really good. If you haven't played it, I highly recommend it. But
I see that it was released on the PSP.
There you go.
So I can play it on my Vita.
There you go.
There you go. but I am stoked about that. But that I'm assuming that's 2024
at least.
Yeah,
because Spider-Man 2
they literally did not show anything.
Yeah, then they showed half a cutscene.
Yeah.
Spider-Man 2, I think they said it's 2023.
Which is only 16 months away, which is I don't think is real.
It's well, I'm sure it's going to be.
No, I'm saying the year 2023 only being 16 months away.
It's hard to believe, right? Yeah,
that's not true.
But the fact that they showed both Spider-Mans would be Spider-Mans, right?
Yes.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And Venom. I imagine Venom's going to be the big bad.
Yeah. I'm a little torn on it because the voiceovers sounded to me an interpretation of Kraven the Hunter, but I don't know. That might be me reading into it, knowing a little bit more about Spider-Man than I know about most Marvel.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess we'll see. But the fact that I think it seems like there's going to be either co-op, or
the press release said single player game. So I don't know if there's an option for co-op, but I think the main way to play it is going to single player. I think it's going to be jumping between Spider-Mans.
Jumping between Miles Morales and Peter Parker.
Yeah.
That makes
and possibly
sense.
Venom.
It's possible. You may play as Venom. Or you may play as symbiote Spider-Man. We'll see.
What are the odds that Kraven the Hunter is the announcer in a battle royale game where all of the Spider-Men fight each other?
That means they got to announce Andrew Garfield and Tobey Maguire soon.
Actually, that would probably be a pretty good game.
I'm thinking about it. That would probably be pretty fun, having a Spider-Man battle royale.
I'll take my hot take. That'd probably be better than Marvel's Avengers.
Oh,
not a hot take, Mark.
That's not a hot take. That's a take. That's the take. We're in on it. You can write the check out to Game Vault Pod. We'll be expecting that in the mail. I was super hyped for Gran Turismo 7. I'm sure neither of you care. It's a racing game. It's a simulation game.
Yep. The water looked nice.
It looked so good. I usually don't get hyped up for Gran Turismo because it's usually the same crap over and over, but this looked really, and
that's what everybody says about every Gran Turismo game.
Yeah, well, I'm one of those people, and it may.
I'm not denying it. Just that's the whole selling point of those games.
Yeah, well, that's why when we did all of our predictions for what these consoles were going to launch with, I thought, they're going to launch with Gran Turismo 7 and Forza because they look incredible, and they're going to want to show off the graphics, and that's usually what they do. But Gran Turismo has turned into Square Enix. Polyphony has turned into Square Enix when it comes to releasing games, and they'll just take their sweet time until it's done.
Yeah, they've come a long way from, look, the tires look round in this one.
Yes, they have.
Which I believe was either 3 or one of them.
1 to 2.
Was it 1 to 2?
Because 2 looked significantly better than 1.
Yeah.
But it may be one of those games that finally pushes me to buy a wheel for console and PC gaming. So Sam, if you're listening to this, this may be the game to finally push.
Yeah, but let's be honest, it's just because me and Jen have been pushing you to get the wheel is why you don't have the wheel.
Yeah, well, of course.
I don't know why that's the one thing you don't have.
I don't know why it's the one thing I don't have either. I've played a million racing games and I've never owned a wheel before. I bought a flight stick before I bought a wheel. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Anyway, the big one, I guess, that really looked awesome and they closed out with was God of War Ragnarok. I thought it was really interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how they go about the Norse god route because does Marvel own the rights to that story right now?
What?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how it works. It's because they own because Thor and Loki and everything else that they've used.
No, that's all public domain.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know if they possibly had some sort of rights to. Because at the end, I thought I saw the Marvel logo pop up, and I was like, "What was that?" So it might have just been from Wolverine and Spider-Man.
Wolverine, yeah.
Yeah, it's just the two interesting things here is I believe they said this is the end of the Norse God saga, which makes me think of an idea, if that is true, that maybe we don't have to have Kratos as the god of war, because they introduced the Norse god of war in this movie. Jesus.
Right, that's who they rescued, correct? Tease?
Yeah, I believe so.
Tier.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. And, you could just, have either them or introduce the other gods of war and the other pantheons.
It would be Boy of War.
Yeah, Boy of War. You go that way. But yeah, there's my interest. The thing I want to see is, and not so much because I think for the most part, most of us had this idea, or maybe not amongst us here, but I'm interested to see them play Thor, as I believe he's a villain, from what I gathered.
Well, yeah, Odin's a villain in this also, so...
Which, a lot of the modern interpretations that people would know of these characters, unfortunately, comes from Marvel.
Right.
And, which is sad to say, to be completely honest.
I was going to say, are you not aware that, the Norse paganism is on the rise and heavily linked to white supremacy?
Oh, yeah.
Because,
yeah. I was talking about not those people.
Okay. We're talking about the public knowledge of Norse gods.
Like casuals.
Right. Is Marvel's movies.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I was going with it. I was trying to avoid that part of it.
I was going to say, once again, I think we run in different circles, if that's not a thing that comes up a lot for you.
No.
Not for me, at least.
That's why I was trying to say that we know the other, the other way this goes. So it's interesting to see people that have known them through Marvel.
I thought it was interesting that they're going to use Fat Thor. They're not they're not showing him as this perfect specimen like he normally is shown. Because even in stories and picture books of Loki and Thor that isn't Marvel, generally he's this muscular, blonde-haired, huge guy who throws a hammer, and it's interesting that they're going with a less attractive version of Thor.
Yeah, we'll see. But it just that's the one risk going with Norse is what Jonathan had mentioned. Just the real life applications of that pantheon and paganism and all that.
Yeah, I mean it'll be interesting to see just because they're trying to. I'm pretty sure they're trying to have Ragnarok happen. Correct? Is that what I've gathered?
They're trying to stop it.
Are they trying to stop it, or are they trying to make it happen?
Doesn't the boy say we have to stop Ragnarok in the trailer? I'm trying to remember.
I don't.
I was tuning it out because it sounds like the plot is going to be while you're fighting people, one of them says we must do war, and the other says no, we should not do war. And the entire time you're wiping out native populations in the place that they live, and so
well, that's what God of War is, right?
I don't care.
I mean,
yes, I have zero interest in God of War in the first place.
Yeah. So,
but yeah,
all I'm saying is, let's take one of these God of Wars and give me the damn remake to Dante's Inferno that I desire. God damn it! No, I'm just kidding.
It's what we're all waiting for, honestly, right?
Yeah.
Well, not only that, they teased a sequel at the end of Dante's Inferno.
Yeah, there you go.
That you never got. So give us
because that game is awful.
It's not awful. That game's good. It's just
what are you talking about?
It's just like God of War.
There's no
way you enjoy playing that game.
It must be 15 years since I've played.
Exactly.
If you thought that game was good, you should check out this game called Devil May Cry.
I have checked out the game called Devil May Cry. I enjoy Devil May Cry. It's not like my favorite franchise, but yeah, I don't know. I like mindless hack and slash stuff like that.
No, so my specific complaint with Dante's Inferno is I beat one of the bosses, and then you have to jump over a lava pit to get to the door to leave the place. I missed the jump, so the checkpoint is when you leave the place. Right. So I had to refight the boss.
That's a pretty bad
because I missed one jump.
Jonathan just had a bad experience
afterwards.
It sounds
like. So that happened, and I was like, "This is hell. I'm in hell right now." I was like, "Oh right, that's the game. It's intentional." I'm deleting this right now.
I mean, that's kind of what happened with Red Dead Redemption 2 with me. I had a perfect pelt. Then I got ambushed, died, and lost the perfect pelt, and I said, fuck this, and I uninstalled the game.
Man, you guys rage quit a lot, huh?
No, I mean...
His is more justified. 5 because it is a much worse game.
I mean, like that happened, and I said this is hell because you're in hell.
I got that. Yeah. Anyway, so God of War Ragnarok looks beautiful. I'm sure anybody who's interested in God of War or liked the last God of War is going to be in on this. So
yeah,
I still have to play the last one. I own it. I just never played it. So eventually I will get to that.
I'm just interested to see if this is really the end of being in, with the Norse gods and stuff. Where they go next if they
Egypt.
Yeah, Egypt is an easy one. I mean,
we've talked about
this. The risky one would be doing
Christianity,
either Christianity or Judaism.
I don't think they'd ever do either of those. Also they're not built around multiple gods, so it's kind of hard to do
around
that
and murder
too.
saints.
All right. Anyway, let's not.
I killed the Pope in Assassin's Creed, so.
Well, we also said that the Christianity version was Dante's Inferno. It's kind of the same thing.
Yeah. I think, did they show anything else at this?
They did, but again, it was a lot of stuff in the beginning I wasn't interested in. So these were the things I kind of wanted to touch on. But if there's anything else that you guys saw that you want to talk about,
no. The only thing is I'm glad they didn't do another Horizon thing after just doing it. And I'm glad. And now this is something I should have looked up beforehand. When does Tokyo Game Show take place? Is it taking place?
I believe so.
Because I'm assuming if we get anything in calendar year 2021 for Final Fantasy 16, I think that's where it ends up.
Tokyo Game Show starts September 30th.
Okay. So. Yeah, if we see anything FF16, it'll be there.
I'm surprised that we haven't heard anything. I mean, I'm not surprised it's Square, but I don't know that we'll hear much more about Final Fantasy VII until much closer to it being ready. I think they've learned their lesson to not show the same thing over and over and over with remake, but we'll see. Overall,
like they published the schedule.
What's that?
It looks like they published the schedule for Tokyo Game Show.
Oh, did they?
About 11 hours ago. And there's going to be new information to reveal for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel.
Yes. I can't believe you thing.
The rest is just saying what developer to be talking, not
is Square there.
Yeah. If Square's there, I'm sure they'll say something. They'll do the we're working on it. That's all they'll say. But anyway,
wouldn't it be cool if we released a Final Fantasy game and everybody'd be like, "Yes, please do that," and I'm like, "Nah, never mind."
I'm ready for a new Final Fantasy. I'm as long as it's not 15 again, I'll be all right.
I want to kill chaos.
Well, that I'm upset that I didn't get to try that. I had downloaded it and I was getting ready to do it, but it was one of those timed things where you can only play from like Tuesday to Thursday or whatever, and it was like Friday, and I could not play the demo anymore. So therefore, it was a dead demo. Couldn't play it anymore.
You're in luck. It's free this week.
Is it?
Just go to the Epic Game Store and download Neo the Complete Edition.
I did. I just did. Anyway, overall, I think it was a pretty good conference. Nothing overly crazy. I mean, the Wolverine thing was pretty great. We won't know anything about that game for another 2 years. So let us know what you thought of the PlayStation Showcase on Twitter, and we'd love to talk about it and see what you guys thought. But as we teased previously, we're going to talk about our favorite quote-unquote dead games. So a dead game can be pretty much any game that had a multiplayer component that either A, the servers are shut down, B, has no one playing it anymore, or let's see, what would C be?
Well, can I
go for it? Go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So I suggested this topic separate from me being on this podcast, although I am very excited that I get to tell my story because it is a huge tragedy and a thing that I think about kind of a lot. So the thing that prompted this is that on the internet, people are constantly misusing the term dead game. They'll be like, "Oh, Apex Legends is a dead game." And what they mean is my friends and I stopped playing it because we have finished our season pass and we're going to come back to it in like a month or so when the next season starts. That's not a dead game.
Yeah. We've been around long enough to see plenty of dead games.
Yeah. That's not a dead game. You using that term is misleading and ruins the term for actual uses. Actual uses are things like what Tom mentioned, where it's like a multiplayer game where either the servers have shut down and you literally cannot play that game ever again, or like a multiplayer game where the player base is so low that you cannot find a match, or if you do find a match, it's like literally the same people in every single match. So the one I want to talk about is Ghost in the Shell, standalone complex, first assault. Obviously, this is a free-to-play shooter from Korea. So 2017, I have a gaming laptop that's decent, and I am looking for like free-to-play shooter, or Steam is recommending me a lot of free-to-play shooter games because I don't want to spend money on Call of Duty. That's expensive. And this one pops up, and I was like, I generally like Ghost in the Shell. Sure, I'll try it out. I boot it up. It's a really fun shooter. It's like a hero shooter. You've got different characters. Well, okay, so it's like a hero shooter. Think Overwatch, except you get to pick your gun, and they're like Call of Duty.
Yep.
Okay, so you've got the different characters, and they've got abilities like the main character from Ghost in the Shell. She can turn invisible, and she moves very fast. And then you've got my favorite character was Azuma, who his ability is he has a like riot shield in front of him. So you're a tank. If you were in the way, your allies stand behind you, and other people can't hit them. And like people just can't get around you, but you move super slowly when you have your shield, right?
Yep.
You get the idea. And then you pick different guns. Like there's
that makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and then there's different guns like shotguns and SMGs and assault rifles, heavy machine guns, whatever. So this game is great. It's got good reviews on Steam. It's free to play, and the like login bonuses are pretty generous, so that you can it takes like a week or two of login bonuses to unlock a new character or gun forever, but the characters rotate, like free to play games tend to do. And also all of the guns are good, and so it's fine if you only have one unlocked. New update comes out, and this new update changes the game so that each of the characters is into like a different class, like a different role, and that role determines which weapons they can use. For example, I said the major she's in the like fast role, and so she can only use shotguns and SMG. And there's for the most part, this is to like for balance purposes, that you've got a character who's invisible. If you restrict them to only SMGs and shotguns, that means that yes, they're very fast. Yes, they're invisible. However, they have to get close in order to do lots of damage. But when they're close, they do lots of damage because they have shotguns and SMGs, right? This means you can't have like a sniper rifle. And so that just makes things a lot easier to balance. And also forces like team composition and whatever. So the thing is, and they also added some new game modes. Thing is, the player base for this game is apparently extremely dumb and illiterate. So the English community review bombed the game after this update came out, saying things like, I updated the game and now I can't use a machine gun on the major. Why is the game broken? And it's like they're like, I bought a machine gun and now I can't use it. And it's like, well, so one, the update, when you load up the game, it gives you a pop-up explaining the change. Two, they gave everybody enough resources to buy a new gun or a new character because
nobody reads that stuff. That's the first.
So the other thing is the new game mode is, you may have heard of this before. So you start in a normal map, and then as the match goes along, part of the outside of the map turns red, and if you go in that area, you take damage. And you see, the thing is, this forces everybody to get into like closer matches as the game goes on.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So a bunch of there were a bunch of reviews with negative comments saying this new game is, or I hate this new map or this new game type. I keep going into the red to get away from people, but then I get killed and I can't see who's shooting me. I said this was in 2017.
Yeah.
You know what game was big in 2017?
PUBG.
Fortnite, because a 12-year-old can understand that if you get out of the bad area.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is a Korean company, and they don't care about the US. That's a tiny market for them. And so they just said, okay, you don't like the game, we'll just stop localizing it. And the service shut down for the US, and it kept going in Korea because the Korean people are able to read.
Yeah, I would say that's a dead game. And I feel bad because it sounds like it was interesting, but if people are stupid, you can't really fix that.
Yeah.
I'm glad you got to come on here and get that off your chest.
Thanks.
It sounds like it's been bothering you for a while.
Yes. Like I said, I think about it kind of a lot.
I mean, if it's a game you liked, that sucks for sure. I mean,
exactly.
I can't even imagine. Like, that's like, if a game got shut down because the player base was stupid that I played, I'd be really pissed. So it makes sense. Mark, do you have a game in mind that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah. So I didn't play as many online games and stuff as probably the two of you have. So my idea of a dead game for me was something I had mentioned earlier, where the games I've just started playing on emulation is, and this was no fault of game producers or anything, but not the one that came to my mind immediately was the fact with Ncaa Basketball 10. Basically, once the license went away, everything just shut down on that in terms of being able to download rosters or even play online or even get all the cool features that came with it. And the game essentially, like I said, has been just, you can sell the physical copy for like $300 because it's not on sale anywhere digitally, and it's just gone. And yeah, that's mainly, and I think it's my lack of playing online until like fairly recently, that I haven't run into the issues Jonathan vented on earlier, where I haven't had a game where servers have been just cut, or an Asian or European company has just said, you know what, the American market's not worth it, we're going to cut it off. I guess the closest thing will come is when they finally shut the servers off to Modern Warfare for Call of Duty.
That'll never happen.
The remake, because that is really the only online multiplayer game that I've played past newer games coming out in the series.
I think Infinite Warfare is still going.
Yeah, Modern Warfare 2 is still up and running.
Yeah,
you can't physically play it, but it's there. I mean, you could play it, but it's all hackers at this point.
Yeah, yeah. So that's why my idea when you said dead game is I have more of an offline history, and the fact that if once my Xbox 360 finally got a red ring in 2013, finally, and then I went to go download everything after getting a new one and finding that all of that shit was gone. Was my idea. Was like, well, I guess I can't live with the realism of these. At the time, I didn't realize it's like, hey, so I'm playing this game profiting off these kids that aren't making any money from.
At the time, you don't think about that.
Get that. But yeah, that's probably the only one I have is any of those college sports games that just went away because of NCAA being the dickheads they are. That's the closest I've come to a dead game. I'm assuming I'm going to get one soon with all of these, as I try all these indie games. I'm sure I'm going to catch one that's all of a sudden going to have the same issue Jonathan had. But yeah, I'm really interested. I was more interested to hear what you two guys had to say about it, because you're much more experienced in that realm, and see what those experiences were like.
Yeah, I kind of teased it the other day when we were talking on stream, but the big one for me, and I guess you could call it a dead game, but it's not really, but the player base is just not there anymore, is Destiny 1. As much as I love Destiny 2, there's just something about the first Destiny that I would love to just load up and go back in with a fire team, but you can't get enough people to either play multiplayer or run a raid or anything like that. So because
I have a friend who still plays Destiny.
Do you?
Yeah.
I can't imagine there being a lot of people in there. I could be wrong.
I think Crucible is fine because you don't need that many people to like matchmake a game, but it is hard to find people for like P stuff for
Yeah, generally with Destiny, I always liked P stuff better, just because, well, in Destiny 2, PvP stuff is kind of broken. I feel like PvP was way better in Destiny 1, the way they balanced everything, but I would want to do the P stuff because that's what I spent the most time doing, strikes and everything like that. But yeah, Destiny 1 for sure would be like my number one. There is something other that I was thinking about when we were talking about this, and that was Assassin's Creed multiplayer back in the day with Brotherhood, and I want to say it was Revelation. There was a really cool Assassin's Creed multiplayer that I really enjoyed, and it did not last for. I think once they ended like the Ezio trilogy, they got rid of multiplayer altogether. Like I don't remember any somewhat recent game that has multiplayer PvP. And I don't know if either of you guys ever played it, but it was some of the most interesting multiplayer that I've ever played because it was a different dynamic. You were an assassin. You weren't like you were tricky. You weren't trying to shoot somebody. So it made it way more interesting. But I don't know if either of you guys have any history with Assassin's Creed.
Okay, so I remember playing a little bit, right? Because I was in college and friends had it, and they were like, they added multiplayer to Assassin's Creed. What is that even gonna be? And so we checked it out, and we were like, oh, this is actually pretty interesting. I think the thing with Assassin's Creed multiplayer is that it's like Mafia, like a social deception.
Yes.
So I think it's probably most interesting to people who do not care about Assassins. Like Among Us has been blowing up, is still blowing up. That is a social deception game that's super popular. I feel like if they were to take the Assassin's Creed player and spin it off as a small side game like that, it would probably do really well. Because people like those kind of games. Just people who look like those kind of games are probably not buying new single player AAA games like day one launch.
Yeah, it was. Go ahead.
I was going to say hearing you talk about that, real fast. I don't know if it sounds very similar to my experience with Mass Effect 3 multiplayer in that I don't think that's very lively anymore, and kind of lost steam as the years went along. But just that idea that this multiplayer version from a very single player game is a lot better than you think. That's just a vibe. I just wanted to jump in with that because it popped in.
Oh yeah, it's very true. So, I've heard a lot of people say that Mass Effect 3 they really wish it had stuck around, but it's one of those things like, well, all right, the game's 10 years old or whatever, and they don't want to, especially like EA. EA is not going to, like, they just shut down like a ton of Need for Speed games. Like you can't even, like, if you purchased one of these older Need for Speed games and it had an online element, you cannot play it anymore. Like you can't play any of it, which that kind of stuff pisses me. So there's a bunch of like totally dead Need for Speed games because you had to sign into an EA account or something to play it. So EA, I think, is most known for shutting games down like that. And it's really annoying because that's really what kills a game is when you give it this online element and then all of a sudden you go, yeah, we don't feel like keeping the servers up anymore. And hopefully sometimes people are able to keep servers up and do stuff like that. Like I want to say there was a vanilla WoW server, but way before Blizzard decided to do it. Yes. And I think StarCraft was the same. They had StarCraft servers, the original StarCraft from Brood War, that were still up years and years after the game had been. It's go ahead.
I'll let you finish your thought.
I was going to say it's nice that there's a community element to these games. Like if people like them enough, they will come back in some form or another, whether it be a private server or guys who worked on mods and stuff ending up working at the companies and getting re-releases like we got for StarCraft and we got for WoW and stuff like that. So there's hope if there's a dead game you love. But go ahead, Jonathan.
Yeah, I was just going to mention. So we talked about Assassin's Creed multiplayer and Mass Effect 3 multiplayer. Those both came out about the same time, and it was at a period of time where, for some reason, video game companies decided that if you were releasing a big budget video game, it had to include multiplayer, whether or not that was part of the appeal of the series or if it made any sense at all. And I think
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think that I like at that same time, I also remember BioShock 2 had multiplayer, and I saw that was an option when I booted up the game, and I was like, who would buy a BioShock game for multi? It was weird.
But I don't remember, Tom, you can correct me. The Assassin's Creed one, did that play into the single player like Mass Effect 3 did?
No, it had nothing to do with it. You could just pick a random avatar and you were that assassin for the game.
Yeah, no, because playing the multiplayer, if I remember correctly, Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, it helped your readiness in the single player game. That stupid percentage scale system that you even had to play the mobile game to get to 100%. So at least, as much as that sucked, at least they tried to integrate it into a mostly single player game. Like, hey, we have this cool multiplayer that works, but your single player fans here, it'll help your single player go in and test it out.
Well, I kind of feel like how now everything is battle royale. I think it was kind of the same back then because Modern Warfare and Modern Warfare 2 were huge. They were so big, and the only thing anybody cared about in those games was multiplayer. So everybody thought, oh man, we got to get on this bandwagon. Everybody wants a multiplayer aspect of a game, so we got to figure out how to put one into this game that has nothing to do with multiplayer. So that's why you ended up with Mass Effect and BioShock and Assassin's Creed multiplayer, which really didn't need to exist, but had interesting concepts all the same. So it kind of sucks to see stuff like that go by the wayside.
Yeah, so I think it was a weird fad at the time to add this multiplayer stuff, but I think the Assassin's Creed and Mass Effect 3 multiplayer are examples of really interesting ideas coming out of that. And I think that wave of adding multiplayer to games as a weird add-on is like the beginnings of video game companies wanting to make forever games.
Games as a service.
And it was just like a weird first stab at that.
Yeah, I think you're 100% right there, because they saw how big these games as a service, or games that could turn into games as a service, like Modern Warfare or even Halo for that matter, like these huge multiplayer things that kept people playing forever. So they thought, oh, we'll try to do that. And I think you're right. That totally seems like the natural progression to get to games as a service like we have today, which we've also seen backfire on games too, like games like Battleborn and stuff like that are truly gone. Like games that, oh, this is a game as a service. I'm trying to think of like Star Wars Battlefront, games like that. Like you couldn't, or any Battlefield game. It's very hard to think like you could go back and play Battlefield 3 and be able to get a multiplayer game with people on there. So
I mean, the one you're missing is Anthem.
Anthem, right? Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
How can Anthem. Well, that's how much I'm not thinking about Anthem.
Exactly.
That's the tricky thing with trying to remember games as a service that have failed, because it's pretty rare that it's a game that like crashes and burns spectacularly. For the most part, it's going to be a game that comes out and nobody cares, and they continue to not care, and then they're like, well, we can't keep doing this.
like that one game. It was based off a game that was really popular. They were trying to get to the Hearthstone sort of.
Are you
talking about Gwent?
No, Artifact is something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Where literally within like a week and a half, it was down to like triple digits people, playing it online.
That's not good.
It was made by Valve.
Valve, yes.
Oh, yeah. I remember that.
In the universe of Dota 2.
Yeah.
That's right.
So it was like literally Hearthstone.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, so it was that's the only other game outside of Anthem that had a big backing to it that I remember, and maybe I listened to way too many video game podcasts for the stick in my that just crashed and burned like that. Very much a shooting star, like, oh my god, they had like hundreds of thousands of people for the first week, and week and a half later, and the metrics say there's like 400 people playing now.
Well, that's what happened to Anthem too. It was the same type of deal. Yeah. But yeah.
Anthem is a more complicated story of them shooting themselves in the foot repeatedly. And I'm not.
I guarantee the artifact thing was people for a week going, you know what, I've got to play Hearthstone.
Probably.
Going back to Hearthstone.
But anyway, Anthem is a whole podcast topic in itself. So maybe in a future episode we'll talk about this shit show that was that game. But yeah, it's a shame that some of these games die. But as Jonathan said, if a game's good, it never stops being good. So hopefully some of these will come back. And speaking of games that are good and continue to be good, let's talk about a Retro Roulette game. We played World of Illusion starring Mickey Mouse and Donald Duck for the Sega Genesis. And as Mark joked about, he said it was the not good version of Castle of Illusion, but the lesser version, which I could understand that, but it still ended up being pretty fun. I was surprised.
Yeah, I mean, I played both of these games as a kid because outside of sports games, one of the games my grandmother would buy me was games. She was like, "Oh, I think he likes Mickey Mouse." So and Bugs Bunny. That's how I ended up with the Bugs Bunny game on NES that I love to this day. These games I played a whole lot of as a kid. Haven't really messed with them recently, so it's good to go back. I am still terrible at games like this, as I've proven on stream. So it's one of those things that I probably beat this as a kid just because it was the only thing I could beat my head against for 6 months and finally figure out because it's a lot of timing. Maybe that's why I bang my head against a lot of Dark Souls games. Is because
it took you 6 months to beat this game?
When I was young, yeah. But I'm not good at these side-scrolling platformers.
Yeah, John, if you haven't seen Mark try to play a platformer before, it's a thing.
That's good, but I play them.
One of our first Extra Life streams,
the Mario Maker.
Yeah, I bought Mario Maker for Wii U, and Mark spent all this time making this level, and in order to have the level be done, you have to be able to beat it.
You have to beat it. Yeah.
So Mark sat there had to be 20 to 30 minutes trying to beat this level that he created.
And I knew how to beat it because I created it.
And he knew how to beat it. And we tried for so long that the touch panel, the touch pad went dead because he tried so many times. And I think at the end, I don't know if
I did beat it. Somebody beat it.
Somebody ended up beating it, but it must have taken us 2 hours for him to make this level and try to beat it.
Yeah, I'm not good, and I probably wasn't any better when I was younger. But the point I was getting to was one of my favorite things about these games, is that you can people, no matter the age, as long as they can sort of understand how a controller works. I found, oddly enough, that these games are very easy for kids to just pick up even nowadays. I should have known, maybe it was a precursor to my youngest niece being like some kind of wizard at these games, being 7 years old and beating Mario Odyssey on her own. That she picked this up at like 4, and when it was like the free trial on PlayStation 3, and I come back in and she's like on level 2 without even saying a word to us on there. But it's that kind of thing that I like and frustrates me about it, is that it is so easy theoretically, but yet I struggle with it until I get into the rhythm. And then I can. The good thing about this one is that you get almost infinite continues, so as long as you have the patience, you should be able to beat it. But yeah, I like my time with it. I've always liked my time with these games. It's one of the few games from Uncle Vim that I pick up and play. Ever since we played Castle of Illusion for this, which was my reintroduction. One of those games. It's a ton of fun. It's a nice game if you are trying to introduce, like I said, a kid to these kind of games, and they like Mickey Mouse, it's a good way to get them used to using a controller and all that. Yeah, I don't know if you had any thoughts outside of the what you showed on stream, Tom.
I mean, I really enjoyed the game. It's definitely not as good as Castle of Illusion, but it has some different mechanics and stuff that made it its own game. I like I always like these older games that let you change the control scheme, because as I was going through the first time and playing, I was like, man, these controls are terrible. But luckily, I feel like it's more of a Genesis thing than a Super Nintendo thing. You're able to change the controller layout, and I was able to get a controller layout that I liked, and it really helped me get through a lot of the middle parts of the game. But the game is very pretty. It's very well drawn, but it's not as tight of gameplay as Castle. Jonathan did play this, so I'm interested to hear what he has to say also.
Yeah. So I guess first, Tom, did you ever go back and beat that final level?
I did not. I was going to today, but I was like, you know what? I don't need to get frustrated today, because I wanted to go back, and I'm going to do it. I want to do it before the next podcast, because I got so close to beating it on stream that I want to beat it and mark it as beat on my backlog already, so I can mark it off.
Yeah, so my first comment is I was watching your stream, and that final level and the final boss didn't seem particularly hard. However, by that point, you were just so frustrated, like you had zero interest in trying to recognize and follow a pattern.
I was really done by that point.
Yeah, and so I feel like this is a game that is best played in short bursts. Like, there are a number of things in those levels that can be pretty frustrating. And so if you're playing it in so I think I played this game for like a total of 30 minutes and got to the third level. And then I set it down because I was like, okay, I can feel that I'm starting to get frustrated. I should get my password, set this down, and then just come back to it later instead of trying to push through it. So I do really like the password system for that reason. I also like the infinite retries and stuff. That's great. Because, so the two things there are the infinite retries are great because I hate Sonic 2 because it doesn't have that. And this has, because the password is only about what level you're on, once you've beaten the game, you can also just go back to whatever level you want, which again is the thing that I specifically hate about Sonic 2 because we're talking about a Sega Genesis game.
Fair comparison.
And so for example, if you're some kind of weirdo who really likes water levels, you could just jump straight to that water level to replay it. And I think that's like a big strength of this game. The next thing I wanted to mention is that I played this on the Vita. Weird. Did you guys know that they crazy? And so when I was watching Tom on stream, I noticed you were having a lot of trouble with the hitboxes for your attack, for your blanket or whatever. And when I was watching you play it, and you were very frustrated by that. When I played it, I was like, I did like one attack against one enemy, and I was like, oh, I get it. The sparkles will stun the enemy. The blanket will kill them. And I had zero problems with that whatsoever. I was always hitting with either the sparkles or the blanket when I expected to. And there's different situations where you want to do one or the other. And then I went back and watched the rest of your stream after that. And I think the hitboxes were weird in your game, but not in mine, which is very interesting. That is more predictable than you playing on original hardware.
That's very strange. Because like I try to do for all of these, I try to play on original hardware, and I don't know what it was. I was having, because I figured out as I was going that you actually have to hit them with the blanket or whatever to kill the enemy, but the hitboxes were just really weird, and they weren't like, when I was expecting to hit them, it just was not hitting anything, and I don't know why. But yeah, you're right. I don't know why I got some wonky stuff going on, so I don't know if they ever made a version 1.1 or anything like that, which is possible. I don't know, but yeah, that was the most frustrating thing about it. I think was the wonky hitbox. I mean, the jumping felt good. I didn't really have too much problems with that. Once I figured out how to run, that helped too. But yeah, I agree with you. But it is funny that you had a better experience playing it on a Vita than I did on on original hardware on a CRT. It's funny.
I guess so. Also, I didn't have as much of a problem with the buttons on the controller because the Vita buttons are closer together, and the it uses the bottom 3 face buttons, and I can reach all 3 of those pretty comfortably. So no problems with like dashing to then jump and then attack in midair or something like that.
Yeah, that's a big problem with the Genesis controller in general, is that it's 3 buttons, but they're all in a line, so you don't really have a lot of options, and it makes it kind of difficult to do like jump and then attack, or run, jump and attack. But yeah, I imagine playing, if they would have made like a 6-button layout, it would have made my life way easier, because I have a 6-button controller, and I could have used the diamond, that type of game.
The last thing is, this has one of the things that I dislike most about platformers, which is that your health only applies to combat. In this game, you have lots of health, but all falls are instant deaths, which means that doesn't matter at all. Additionally, all of the like power-up things that you get are usually you get 1 extra, or you regain 1 health, but then that's completely meaningless and doesn't help you in any way, unless you're getting hit by like birds repeatedly, which I don't understand who would have that as their main problem in this game.
Yeah, I would imagine the health is really just it's just bosses. What I imagine is where people would get hit the most in a game. If we're gonna percentage it out of situations where they would get hit, I would say the first time you see a boss would probably be the highest percentage.
But I still found that I was losing 1 or 2 tries on the way to the boss because I would miss a single jump, and the platforming is just so much more punishing than any of the combat.
I was talking more in the combat situations. You would lose the health more likely the first time you see the boss than actually any combat there on out. The platforming you mentioned is the aforementioned reason why it takes me so much longer to beat each game. If someone with the probably slightly better skills at those type of games, such as you and Tom, are having trouble with those jumps, I just don't trust any jump I make, and that's a lot of times why I miss.
You must hate Castlevania then. Because especially like the originals, you once you jump, that's it. You can't go. There's no going back. So.
That's why all the games that I've beaten that have this kind of mechanic of a platforming stuff in it is mainly because that was one of the only games I had. So I had to keep playing it and eventually brute force my way through it, and eventually get good enough that I could do it. But it's still not like a muscle memory thing that I can go back and be great at it. It must have somehow skipped over me in the family, despite me being the one that plays a lot of video games. Because as I've mentioned multiple times here in the past, my sister, who has not played Mario 3 in probably close to a decade or more, can just pick it up and just go through the first 2 worlds without even really much of a struggle. And it frustrates me to no end that happens. And
I mean, when you have that much muscle memory for a game and nostalgia for it, it tends to work out that way.
Yeah, and the fun part is it's now led my youngest niece, who watches me play games, to, if I'm having trouble with it, ask me if I want my sister to help me. So
I just want to clarify, I am not good at 2D platformers, as I said earlier. I do not want anybody listening to this podcast to think that I am good at this game.
I mean, if you're just like 2 stars good at it, you're above me. So that was mainly my point.
Okay, that's fine. Just you said that I was good at this, and I want to clarify that's not true.
I will clarify that I meant you both are better than I am at these games.
Yeah, it's better. Anybody who watched understands how good I am or not good at these games I am. All right. Let's give it a score. Jonathan, what score out of 5 do you give this?
I'm going to give this 3 kings and a queen, which is the password that I got for the last level I got to.
That's pretty good.
How about you, Mark?
This game's definitely a solid 4 for me. There's a lot of things in it. Jonathan mentioned, the platforming and stuff like that stops it from being a top flight game, but it's a game that you can play. And I know I just realized that statement is, hey, it turns on, is what that sounds like. But meaning just a game that you can pick up and play for like hour bursts, like Jonathan mentioned, and it is still at least entertaining. Once you get into those later levels, it could be kind of frustrating, especially those cloud jumps. You could get a little more frustrated with it and it not be as fun. But a lot of these Genesis Nintendo games of this era between the late 80s, early 90s, I like to rank them around a 4 if they're basically games you can just pick up and play, and there's a good fun factor to it. That's about it. That's probably the most I can say to justify that.
All right. I'm going to give it a 3.5, just because of pretty much everything we've talked about. It's very easy to pick up and play. I very much enjoyed what I played, but if you sit and try to beat the whole game at once, it can become very frustrating and you can very easily lose your patience. And I highly recommend, if you do play this game, like Jonathan said, play it for as long as you feel like you're doing well. And then if you're really not doing well, get yourself a password, take a break from it, come back. I love that this game has a password system, and I'm super happy that it doesn't penalize you for using that password. A lot of times in games will punish you for using passwords, like they'll either give you half health or no health or no stuff when you log back in. But luckily this game doesn't really have a whole lot of things that you can lose or not use. So I give it a solid 3.5 out of 5. I recommend it if you enjoyed it, especially if you enjoyed Castle of Illusion or you enjoyed Disney platformers. Go pick this one up and give it a shot. All right, it's time to spin the wheel. Okay, Mark, you're going to get your chance to play Tony Hawk.
Hey.
We're playing Tony Hawk's Pro Skater for the PlayStation.
Oh boy!
I'm mostly joking when I say this, but I am disappointed every week you don't say Dragon.
It's on there. It's on the list. It just doesn't. I'm just happy we didn't get a racing game. Because we'll go through stretches where we'll get 7 racing games in a row, and I'm like, all right, I can't pick another racing game.
I think you could argue that Tony Hawk Pro Skater.
I can argue that it's not a racing game too.
Point counterpoint on the next podcast.
There are levels where you can basically race down the hill, but that doesn't mean it's a racing game. Anyway, I'm sure everybody and their mother has heard of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and I'm also gonna have to figure out how to go about the music again, because the whole game is half the nostalgia for Tony Hawk is the music. So I apologize for everyone on stream that's gonna have to listen to generic punk ska music as we but hopefully you all tune in this evening when you're listening to this and watch me play Tony Hawk and be terrible at it. I'm sure, because Tony Hawk, going back to Tony Hawk 1 is a chore if anybody has tried it. So if you're playing along at home, play some Tony Hawk and let us know what you think. But I think that's gonna do it for us this evening. It's been a lot of fun. Had a lot of great conversation before we get out of here. Mark, you want to let everybody know about our family?
Yeah, so we have our D&D podcast, Stranger Damies, airs every other Wednesday, wherever you get podcasts. You can find it on Instagram and Twitter at Stranger Damies. And then we have our movie podcast, They Called Us a Movie. That airs every Thursday. You can find that on Spreaker. So please do subscribe to us there and leave us a review as well. We are on Instagram and Twitter at The Main Damie, themaindamie.com. is our website where all of our podcasts live, and I will keep mentioning this up and through October. One of my favorite features of the year, Anthony's 31 Days of Horror, where he writes small little short micro reviews for 31 different horror movies throughout the month of October. So it is a good read along every day. It gives you something real quick in the morning or during a break at work or something to read over. So just be on the lookout for those. And then we stream on our streaming platform, twitch.tv/GameVaultPod. We stream on Mondays, which is where you'll get to see the Retro Roulette game played this evening. And then you'll see on other Mondays, we're playing through currently Chrono Trigger. Wednesdays is our multiplayer. It's what are we calling it?
Halo Hump Day.
Yeah, Halo Hump Day or whatever. The game where I actually improved at it. Thank you to my sensei who is on this podcast today, Jonathan. I was able to actually get more than one kill in SWAT, which was an improvement. But
Very
no,
nice.
but mostly it was the team deathmatch advice that he gave it really helped out a lot. So be on the lookout for that. We may switch it up. It's usually just a multiplayer shooter or some kind of multiplayer game every Wednesday. And then Thursdays is our co-op streams. Right now, me and Jen are playing through It Takes Two. I have me and Tom have a game ready on the back burner after that, and then maybe I'll bring in other friends of the podcast to do either full game playthroughs or maybe one-offs and stuff like that. It's just a good night. I found out there's a lot. I feel like the streams flow a lot better when there's more than one of us on the microphone. I think a co-op night is great. And then keep a lookout on our Twitter at Game Vault Pod because we're going to be starting doing stuff on weekends as the summer winds down here. So be on the lookout for that. And I do apologize if you are listening to this when this airs on Monday that there was no stream on Thursday. I miscalculated when Jen went on vacation. So we forgot to tell everyone we were canceling that stream. But we'll be back this Thursday.
Sounds good. Yep. A lot of fun stuff coming up. Everybody stay tuned to your favorite podcasting app and Twitch. Also, before we get out of here, I want to mention that we're an affiliate of Stone Age Gamer. If you have any need for retro console accessories, whether it be controllers or cables or power supplies or flash carts, head on over there via the link in the description of this podcast. And every time you purchase something through that link, it gives us a little kickback. It helps us make this podcast and our streams better for you guys. So I want to thank Jonathan for joining us and filling in for Jen. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I am happy to be on this podcast anytime you will let me.
I'm happy to have you. It's always a lot of fun. So I hope everyone out there is doing well, enjoying the end of their summer, and just be kind. And for Mark and Jonathan, I'm Tom, and we will catch you guys in the next one.